The topic we're covering today is one that everyone on the internet is discussing.
People hear the boogeyman term of the algorithm. All that is just machine learning, a weighted emphasis on a desired outcome.
Before we talk about that, you said something that I do want to challenge a little bit.
You have to look at what's happening chemically, neurologically in these different processes.
There's this whole unseen, unspoken system of currency that operates, and unless you get informed of those changes in advance, you'll totally miss them.
It wasn't that big of a problem 2, 3, 5 years out, but now a decade, 2 decades downstream, these subtle changes have long-term consequences.
It really is an emotionally triggering capability. I mean, how powerful is that you can influence society with just a few lines of code? I'm Nicole Shanahan. Welcome to Back to the People podcast, which highlights the growth of a movement uniting America, where our government is free from corporate capture and where we give voice back to the American public. Richard Ryan, thank you so much for joining me today on Back to the People podcast. The topic we're covering today is one that everyone on the internet is discussing, which is how do we protect ourselves from getting brainwashed? How do we protect ourselves and the ones we loved from being radicalized? And how do we protect our psyche from the torment of this insane internet that all of us are participating on? Your background's very interesting. Software engineer turned content creator, turned co-founder of Black Rifle Coffee Company, a very, very big brand that grew to a $1.7 billion valuation. Good revenue. I mean, you're a business guy. You don't need to be going out there and writing books called The Warrior's Garden, which goes on to detail how to inoculate yourself from online radicalization. But here you are, and here we are. We're gonna talk about The Warrior's Garden today.
Well, thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
So, Warrior's Garden, why did you write the book? You know a lot about these algorithms. They're horribly toxic. People feel totally helpless. Should they feel helpless? Why should they read The Warrior's Garden?
Yeah, I mean, this is a huge problem, and if you look at it from 50,000 foot, it's almost it's mind-numbing and trying to figure out how you attack something like this. And so for me, I like to look at things at a granular level, but zoom out as best as I can. And I really found that if you were to trace this back to one point in time, I would say probably around the 2012 era. Charlie Munger has one of my favorite quotes. It's "Show me the incentives and I'll show you the outcome." And when the partner program came out for YouTube and some Facebook a little bit later and everything, I think that there was a a shift in the way that people were consuming and creating. Where earlier days it was, when YouTube came out, hosting was relatively cost prohibitive. It cost a lot of money. If you had a viral video, say you got 1 million views, it cost like $100,000 in bandwidth. And then everyone started uploading to YouTube because it was free. And you hear the saying all the time: if you're not paying for it, you are the product. And for 6 years or so, YouTube was losing a ton of money, and the DMCA lawsuit was going on, and the acquisition from Alphabet, and then putting the partner program in with tying that to AdSense. This perfect setup started to happen, where people hear the term, the boogeyman term of the algorithm. Really, all that is just machine learning, a weighted emphasis on a desired outcome. And what is that desired outcome? You have the customer here is the advertisers, and the company selling something here will be the social platforms, and the product that they're selling is your attention, so that more ads could be served out. And I don't think that there's anybody nefariously sitting at the top of the C-suite level of any of these companies saying, "Hey, let's see how we can screw up society." I think it's just a byproduct of misaligned incentives in so many different ways. And the unnecessary byproduct, or for profit, I guess it is a necessary byproduct, is the exploitation of our
Mhm,
neurochemistry to increase watch time on video and watch time on platforms.
mhm,
And so if you were to attack this from an individual level and just say, hey, look, what are the things that are happening to me on a daily basis? I kind of go through this anecdotal process of me in the last 2 3 years having been so um, part of the system from the early days, because I was a, like you say, I was a software developer, early 2000s. I taught myself how to program. I built a YouTube app and had it in the App Store 4 years before YouTube did. I was creating mobile apps for content creators so that they could have their own monetization mechanism for mobile when desktop was kind of driving the show. And then over the years, I started looking at this thing, and when screen time and some of these other analytic components to the different devices out there started coming out. I started looking in, seeing how much time I was spending on different applications and stuff like that. And I started extrapolating that out over a period of time. And I was like, oh, wow, if I'm spending 60 hours a week on social platforms and
mhm.
I quantify that over the span of my life, would I rather spend that time doing something else with family, with my dogs or kids or whatever these things are, learning to play piano? And again, like I want to emphasize, I'm not asking people to abstain from social media completely in that sense. It's really it's establishing boundaries after you do the work and understanding where your time is being sucked away from you. Because really, it's one of the few things that a lot of people as they get older in life wish that they could exchange money for, optimizing their health span,
Mhm.
so that they can have quality years in their later life. But if you're not optimizing, I'm not saying to time hack everything by the minute right now, but do the work and figure out what's valuable to you in your life in that sense.
Well, yeah, let's talk about how to live our lives. But before we talk about that, you said something that I do want to challenge a little bit. You said that it's not like someone sitting up in the C suite trying to figure out how to manipulate and brainwash our civilization. I have to disagree with that a little bit. While Okay. So my understanding is because I've seen it, is that okay, sure, the algorithm can be adjusted. Elon Musk very publicly talks about adjusting his algorithm. There was a period during the election where he said we are going to weight good, happy sentiment higher than negative sentiments in posts and in what we're going to show people in their feeds. So, control of the feed is a very powerful thing that the companies can manage pretty offhands. They just adjust the algorithm, and then the algorithm will then execute on what shows up in your feed. And I'm not saying that there's, some horrible person at TikTok who is intentionally trying to, for instance, destroy American culture. I'm not saying that because I just don't know for certain, but it's possible, right?
Yeah.
It's very much possible. And then now I want to talk about the content creators who know the algorithm, whose entire companies are founded on how these algorithms work, create content to then drive and capture audiences because they're working that algorithm and they know exactly how to like angle with it. And as a result, they become very influential on these sites.
Yeah, and in no way, shape, or form am I saying that I'm standing on a pulpit here and holier than thou, and that's not something I've done. I mean, you look at my history from 2006, 2007, all the way up into the present. Like I could quite literally call somebody at YouTube in 2008 and say, "Hey, look, I have this new video coming out. I think you're gonna love it and everything," and then they would put it on the homepage, to the point where in 2012, when the various weights of the algorithms shifted towards from click-through rate to watch time on video and all these other different things. I trend jacked. I definitely exploited the the algorithm. But I have this saying, you play the rule book, not the game. And so this is the game, but there was a rule book in which I leveraged to succeed. And so in no way, shape, or form am I saying that I didn't do that. But it's unfortunate at a individual level that this is the game that we're playing.
Yeah, and it's not like the algorithm is some nascent entity that is ever set. It's constantly evolving. Engineers are constantly tweaking it, and we don't know the powers that be that influence those changes to the algorithm. And so, in a world like this, we can feel one thing one day, go online 2 weeks after the algorithm has been adjusted, and then be like, "Ah, I feel a little bit differently about that."
Yeah.
So, it really is an emotionally triggering capability. I mean, how powerful is that, that you can influence society with just a few lines of code?
Oh, it's amazing. And again, the downstream second order consequences of those things, the example that I give a lot of the guys in our community is when you're sighting in an optic on, say, a rifle. If at 100 yards you sight it in a little bit off, it's not that noticeable. But at like 500 to 1,000 yards, it's going to miss the mark completely. And I think we're seeing those downstream effects where it wasn't that big of a problem 2, 3, 5 years out, but now a decade, 2 decades downstream of these subtle changes have long-term consequences. And to give the analogy of the garden,
Mhm.
I'm big into the world of regenerative agriculture and really developing a diverse biological healthy ecosystem makes it resilient over time. And there's also a saying in regenerative ag, it's not how much rain you get, it's how much you keep. And
Yep.
to do that, you have to have, that healthy soil without compaction, without the crust on top. So when you do get the rain, you get the infiltration into the aquifers and everything else. And having said that, inputs equal outputs. So if your inputs are always toxic, your outputs aren't going to be as beneficial as you'd like them to be. And I think that's kind of one of those second order effects downstream that we're starting to see play out in the bifurcation, polarization, and politics and society in so many different ways. And if you look at a lot of statistics, be it homicides and different things, and like say FBI crime stats, you'll find that there's actually a plateauing of a lot of these statistics, but the amplification of everything on social media has led people to be into a heightened state and fight or flight emotional response all the time. And when your inputs are always these exacerbated, unrealistic, perceptions of reality, your day to day is going to be impacted from it. And I think those are the consequences that we're starting to see now play out.
I mean, we've been seeing them for years, and it's really nerve-wracking to the point where, the government's keeping an eye on social media. TikTok's about to be sold. The US TikTok is going to be owned by Andreessen Horowitz and several others. And that's because there was a fear that China was using TikTok to destabilize America. So this is a real serious problem. And look, you describe in your book that it's when we think about how algorithms reward behavior, it's very much identical to techniques used in a casino to keep people in a casino. And you mentioned bright lights, and I follow the work of Dr. Jack Kruse. I don't know if you know Jack
Yeah.
Kruse. He talks about that it's not just the content itself that is manipulating your brain. It's the blue light. It's the intensity of the blue light, and it's exposed constant exposure to your the nerves that sit behind your eyes.
Yeah.
And so the content is received by the brain totally differently when you receive it on a blue light device like an iPhone or a laptop.
Yeah, the gambling analogy is so perfect because I went through for the book a number of studies and books on various addictions from alcohol, substance, pornography, and gambling was the most nefarious in that. Like you say, they're taking all these different components from the lighting, the sounds, and all these different mechanisms. The variability in the reward mechanism is arguably one of the most addictive components to it. So if you think about, say, Instagram and various social platforms that allow you insight to see who's looked at it and what's the distribution like on your content, who's
Mhm.
seeing that, who's clicking on it, and then this time it isn't as good as the last one. I got to keep feeding the beast. I have to keep consistently uploading, and there is
Mhm.
that component to it. Yeah, and it's unfortunately the last 2 decades has really optimized more and more to the point where again we're starting to see these downstream effects.
Yeah, I personally get updates from my social media manager of changes to the algorithm. And, if X is trying to pitch articles, for example, their long form text feature, if you, as a content creator, release your content on X articles, it's going to reward your account. So there's this whole unseen, unspoken system of currency that operates behind the scenes. And unless you get informed of those changes in advance, you'll totally miss them.
Yeah.
And it's a huge business to be a content creator. So much so that on TikTok and Instagram, you'll see ads on from people who are training you, who are selling their services to you on how to be a content creator, and they sell it in such glamorous ways. You'll see this girl in Bali, she's so cute. She's like 22, drinking her iced coffee in a cafe, and she's like, I made $12,000 last month making content. And it's not like sexy content. It's just like fun content. Like, I ate this sandwich and it was so delicious. Or, I went to the beach and look at this toenail color. It's like, it's just random stuff half the time about their
Yeah, I
lives.
feel like so just as an asterisk, like those things get under my skin a little bit, and I feel like if a lot of these snake oil salesmen in so many different ways were so great at creating content, they wouldn't be selling courses. They'd be making content and selling a product other than that. But it's one of those things I get really fired up about because like you say, you see them everywhere, and again, the problem that I
Well,
have
Mr. Beast is glorified.
for
He
sure.
b he built his whole career on it, and I don't know why. I know I've literally never watched one thing from Mr. Beast, but I know more about his career because his story is marketed to everybody as some enormous success story, and again, I don't follow Mr. Beast. Why do I know so much about how he became so rich and how much money he has?
Well, he's a great example of a creator that's focused on. I was talking about like the people selling the courses
Well,
because a
people
lot of
sell
times.
me Mr. Beast. They're like, "I will make you Mr. Beast," and I'm like, "I don't I
Yeah,
don't
but
wanna be Mr.
but
Beast."
my rebuttal to those people is if you're so good at doing that, why don't you make yourself Mr. Beast and then do use that playbook to sell products because clearly he's successful at doing it, right? So if you know the formula, that's why I'm like always reluctant. Like so whenever I was a media executive at Verizon and Hearst, you would always get these consultants and stuff that would come in and they would tell you this is the way to do it. It's like sir, if you knew the way to do it, then you would be doing it. You wouldn't be out consulting for all these different companies and stuff because there's so much money to be made in those people who can adapt to the various weights of the algorithms on either platform to grow those companies in that sense. But yeah, I get fired up about those people.
Well, you're a purist. I mean, if I didn't know any better, I would definitely hire a consultant that would tell me, "Oh, I'm gonna make your, teenage daughter who's now a new content creator. I'm gonna teach her all the tricks of Mr. Beast." I mean, why wouldn't a mom hire that consultant for their 17-year-old daughter who wants to like start an online career? Why not? I mean,
Well,
how
I
else are you gonna learn it?
So I will say, to each their own. And again, I don't want to pass any judgment on any people who go down the path of content creation because I clearly did that. I just found that, for me, and I'm not trying to get anybody to play the world's tiniest violin for me in any way, shape, or form, but I've found as their creator burnout is real, and having to stay on that hamster wheel and feed the machine, you run through so many issues. Again, I'm not playing the tiniest violin for myself here, but I went from moving to Los Angeles, being homeless, living on a porch, to teaching myself how to program, to getting a grant from YouTube for, I think it was around $40,000 to build out my YouTube channel. And then I, had a fairly successful firearms channel. And then you start going through the world of, cancellation and policy changes around what's not or politically savvy at that point of time, or whatever. And then you get your videos demonetized, and then that loses algorithmic weight, and you go from getting tens of millions, hundreds of millions of views to getting thousands of views, and your videos being restricted. And now my videos are age gated, to the point where I was like, I've been on this hamster wheel having to feed the machine all the time, and now I've had my ability to provide for my employees and myself taken away from me, because the terms of service were subjectively changed because somebody felt like that was something that they didn't want to prop up. And so, as an individual, whether or not you realize it, if you are a content creator, a lot of your, and this is going to sound bad, but a lot of your worth, in some ways, perceived worth, is based off of what people tell you when they see the videos and stuff like
Mhm.
that. When you're getting hundreds of millions of views, and then all of a sudden a social platform, because they disagree with you on the type of content you create, turns that off, your distribution is completely shut off. And then all of a sudden your self-worth feels like, oh, okay. And you take this kind of psychological hit. And again, I'm not trying to get sympathy from anybody. Like, I went through the processes. I'm better for it in so many different ways. But I think about how many younger people work on creating content for
Mhm.
these platforms. And there's something to be said for when you have a large audience and you lose it in any capacity. You're trying to chase the dragon, and that, like, it's kind of tragic. And when that social capital goes away, like, it's just one of those things that I'm aware of. And I don't know if necessarily that's something I would want my kids to embrace until they got older, maybe in their 20s or something. So
Yeah, you hear of these really sad stories of social media TikTokers that have serious mental health issues. Some commit suicide, and they're very young. And if you think about how much of their lives they've spent creating content, it is an exhausting. I hire people to do my video editing and content creation because it's just not a talent I have, and or something I have patience for. But sitting there and cutting these videos and figuring out what is that one part of the video that's gonna spark, uh, it's exhausting, it's tedious. You're just constantly thinking about, you're ruminating on that thing over and over and over again, and wondering if that one thing I said or did, or how I did it, or how it looked, is going to catch any enough attention to make money. You eventually, the goal is to monetize that, right?
mhm.
Imagine if you're just living your life on your phone trying to monetize something you do or say or experience.
Yeah, and not even being present in the moment. And so you
Yeah.
look at how many people have their phones out at every aspect of their life to record this thing. And there are a few studies that are done around the way that the brain stores a memory, and
Hmm.
that it, it- the event of you recording something, your brain is logging it as the phone recording the thing, not the thing itself. So say you're watching fireworks or whatever, which nobody ever rewatches their 4th of July fireworks videos after they share them to social media, but your brain's logging it as remembering recording the fireworks and not the fireworks themselves. So if over the span of like a year you drive the same way to work every single day, you're not likely to remember every single one of those drives. You'll remember maybe the most recent, and it'll store the same drive in your memory. But if you have variability in the way that you go to work, those will be logged as different instances. And it's the same thing with your lived experience. If your phone is always the focus of this thing, you're kind of losing the long term effects of storing that memory. And I think that, this is just speculation, but I think that again, the downstream effects, I think we'll find that a lot of this will have some type of implications for memory or cognitive decline, definitely emotional atrophy and different neurological processes for sure.
Calling all curious minds. Thrill seekers, deep thinkers, debate lovers, story chasers, those who question everything, and those who just love a great read. At Skyhorse Publishing, everything is on the table, and we mean everything. We stand for free thought, bold ideas, and fearless storytelling. Whether it's uncovering the truth, teaching a new skill, or sparking inspiration, we publish books that matter. With 12,000 plus titles in print and 400 more on the way, Skyhorse is one of the most dynamic independent publishers. We challenge the status quo. We bring every perspective to the table, giving readers a place to explore, question, and grow. Want the truth behind the headlines? Read Rand Paul's Deception, The Great COVID Cover-Up. And pull back the curtain on power and public health with RFK Jr.'s The Real Anthony Fauci. Work hard, move fast, have fun, and change lives for the better. That's the Skyhorse way. Go to skyhorsepublishing.com/BTP to learn more. Skyhorse Publishing. Get reading because the sky's the limit.
That's interesting. I'm trying now to think back on my life and to think about, for example, recording videos of my daughter versus being there with her. And you're correct. Those are two separate categories of memories. And it's not like
Yeah.
I'm, taking videos of my daughter to create content. It's for my own memories. But it is a very different lived experience to be behind the camera versus just living in the moment.
Yeah.
Never thought of it that way.
Yeah, perspective is kind of the thing that I try to find creative ways to spark some type of emotion in my life. And so Neil deGrasse Tyson had this, which arguably kind of got me on the path of writing this book. He said this thing where he was talking about the life of a dog being 7 years, compared to 1 year for a human. And he's like, but your perspective of that is going to be really hard to just understand 7 years of time as a human. But if you were to take and put it into a perspective that meant a little bit more to you and your understanding, every day of your life is a week of your dog's. And when he said that, it just hit me like a ton of bricks. I was like, oh wow, like I travel a lot, so I'm away from my dogs. I really, really care for them a lot. And, I don't know if you've ever had to put down one of your dogs or anything like that, but
I
as they
have.
get older and they get, less mobile and everything, it's one of the most painstaking things in the world to make that decision to put your dog down. But you have to do it. And, it's for the better for them. They may be suffering or whatever. And your mind starts to go into this, yeah, well, if I can only have like maybe just one more day, let's prolong this or whatever. And you start having these regrets. Man, I really wish I could have played fetch with them one more time or whatever it is. And so for me, like the meme, I want to live my life with as little to no regrets as possible. And so that's what kind of sparked me on this and saying, okay, if time is really the thing, the saying is, time is the only currency that we spend that we never know our
Yeah.
remaining balance or whatever. And for me, I was like, okay, how am I spending my time? And that's why I turned on screen time and tracking on all across all of my devices to really figure out, let it run for a month and see weekly, daily, how many pickups I was having, how many notifications I was having. Because context switching is another problem that a lot of people don't think about, the interruptions and the cognitive fatigue that happens throughout the day from opening and closing and shifting focus so many times. You could almost look at your bandwidth or your cognitive bandwidth as little memory blocks, like the old school Microsoft days when you had to defrag your computer and move those blocks around and everything. You have a fixed amount. Everybody may be slightly different, but you want to minimize the amount of switching that you're having to do throughout the day. And so I started quantifying this, and again, I don't want people to feel like this is a insurmountable task in any way, shape, or form. Because the good news is for me, I found a lot of these things were next to nothing or free. So the first thing you have to do is just do the work, turn insight screen time on, and just figure out where your digital consumption is going and what your first pickup are and where the compulsive behavior and everything might be. And then really start, for me, like, doing the work was figuring out what things do I value in life. Where do I really want to spend my time? Do I want to spend 2.8 years of my life on TikTok, or would I rather, I don't know, play fantasy football with my friends that we've been doing a league for 15 years, or a pickup basketball league that we have for entrepreneurs here in Austin, go there twice a week or something like that, or spend time with my kids or my dogs or whatever these things are. And
Mhm.
then that, once you define all those things that you value and where that time might go, then you start establishing boundaries. And this is where it kind of, for me, started getting fun and cool, and trying to figure out the different things that people were doing to mitigate some of these. And again, everybody's going to have a different lived experience, and how much time that they need to be on social media. Because I'm not naive here. Like, we do live in a digital realm, and I'm not telling people to completely abstain for the rest of their life. But if you set these boundaries, you can do little things, like you were talking about the blue light. So one of the things that I did is I put a matte screen protector on my phone, and I put it in grayscale mode, so it looked like almost an e-ink device. And it's a really, really weird thing, because you find yourself like wanting to turn the color back on to look at photos and all these other
Mhm.
different things. And you'll find yourself almost like a junkie. Like, I'll put my phone at the front door whenever I get home, so that you charge it there. And if I'm gonna go check it for messages or anything like that, I have to get up and go there. I can't compulsively just scroll on the couch or anything. Like, I have to be present with everyone that's around me and everything. And that kind of leads into one of the next chapters is friction. And friction is really, really a good thing in life in so many different ways, because in the dopaminergic seesaw, the effort to the dopamine release is really important. Because if the effort is really, really low, you'll find that your baseline is just, you build up a more of a tolerance to it, and you're going to need more and more and more and more.
Mhm.
And so, be it working out, you want friction, you want to lift weights, you want to run, and you build up resistance, to the point where when you do run the marathon or wherever these things are, when that dopamine release hits, it's a natural process in that sense. With the other things that I've been doing to add friction, just as an example, in the digital realm, was getting rid of a lot of my streaming services. And this sounds very boomer like in so many different ways, but I got a Blu-ray player, a UHD player, and I said to myself, I'm not going to sit on the couch, and even if we want to watch a movie, we're not going to just get there and just click on something. If we want to watch something, we're going to agree, we're going to go to the movie theater, or we're going to order it, and it'll be here in a day or two. And a lot of times what we found was it wasn't worth watching. We didn't want to see it. So, like, the effort required to go into Blockbuster Video or whatever back in the day were kind of little necessary mechanisms in the process of
Mhm.
that. And now everything is just so convenient. I think you find yourself sliding into some of these things that are just zapping away either your finances or your time. And so adding friction in a lot of ways is really, really good. And there's
I add
other.
friction by this is the number one thing I do and that I can do and that has had the biggest return on the investment, and it hasn't been too painful. But I've tried your other stuff; it doesn't work for me. But what does work is don't allow my phone into my bedroom after dark. So when it's time to go to bed, I charge my phone in the kitchen. And that one tool has improved my sleep. I don't scroll while laying in bed, which I was doing for hours sometimes. Um, and I don't have like that device anywhere near my sleep space because it was hurting my sleep. There is some electromagnetic impact of charging your phone next to your head. A lot of people do. A lot of people use their phone as their alarm clock. So get a analog alarm clock and charge your phone elsewhere. Don't sleep with your Apple Watch on. A lot of people sleep with their Apple Watch on. Big no. Charge your devices in the kitchen. And to me that has been easy because you're doing a transition anyways to bed. And it just was like it was doable, it was reasonable. At first I was like a little agitated, but I got over it very quickly. I do get a little bit agitated. It's just my personality. I don't like to like track my steps, for example. Like I don't like to track anything. I hate diets. I think diets are ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I just don't like being told or restricted what to do. I like to, I like to logically arrive at that conclusion because it just feels intuitively good. Um, so I'm that kind of person. I know there's a lot of people like that out there. And so for me, the tracking my time spent on the phone, I didn't like getting that notification. It's like,
Really?
yeah, you spent an 3 hours and 49 minutes yesterday on your phone, and here's where you spent your time. I was like, you know what? Screw you. I was busy.
Yeah.
I earned that time to be on X.
I love it. Yeah, what you're saying there is probably, if you could take away anything, anything, that is the key takeaway is sleep, and getting the phone out of the bedroom is arguably one of the most impactful things anyone could do, because sleep it's like the foundation of everything in life. If you're not getting good sleep,
Mhm.
then everything else just kind of like starts to deteriorate in some way, shape, or form, or atrophy. And another good exercise I give people to just that I give in the book was, leave your phone at home when you go to the grocery store or something along those lines, and then just look at other people on their phones. Like, just count how many people are on their phones while you're driving to the grocery store, and you'll find yourself like, even yourself, like going to compulsively reach for the thing to check for messages and all these other different things. And it's like, that's just, I'm just trying to just give you a little bit of a nudge there into realizing that that's, it's an addiction. If you're feeling the withdrawal component to, driving to the gas station or the grocery store that you've been to a million times, and you can't be away from it for 30 minutes to an hour, the world's not going to end during that time. There's these little things that you can have just insight into realizing that there might be the need for some type of healthy boundaries set.
The number one thing an addict doesn't want to be told is that they're an addict. And they're actually chemically programmed to take that kind of criticism and reject it outright. So you're trying to tell people that they are addicted to their phones. And everyone is going to say, well, I have to. I need it for work. I need to do these things. I just like it. I relax on it. I mean, it's like, it's social. It's how I connect to the world. I'm a mom stuck at home. It's how I get stuff done. The convenience of it is too important. My life is so hard and so busy. Like, why are you going to take away the one thing that like soothes me? right? Why are you going to take that from them, Richard?
Yeah, well, okay, so let's clarify something here. So first of all, like the objective in the book is in a lot of ways just to explain my anecdotal process at going through this as somebody who has built these systems, has optimized these systems, has exploited these systems for my benefit. And now I'm trying to offset and mitigate them because they weren't aligned with my core values. And
Yeah.
I'm not trying to pass judgment on anybody. You may find that you get a lot of value out of your phone, be it entertainment, productivity, whatever it is.
Hmm.
No judgment in that sense. What I'm asking people to do is do the screen time, do the work on figuring out what your core values are, and then hold them up against that and say, is this taking away from this? If
Hmm.
it is, then you need to do the other work and establishing those boundaries and trying to figure out, like how you can go about realigning this in a way that, because again, there's all these examples that I'll give where, some people will say, hey, look, I like getting cooking videos on YouTube. That's awesome. But um, the necessary part for a content creator to create YouTube videos is to monetize it in that sense. And if you're monetizing to get better ads, you want to keep people on platform or on video longer. So to do so, you extend out the video. So I think AI is going to help in some ways with some of these things, and then it's going to introduce and create new problems. But you have a lot of content creators that, how many people have you heard say like, comment, subscribe, and milk a video when
Yeah.
you just wanted a very specific value from it? Come on, man, get to the point. Get to the point. I want, like, just tell me how to change this filter. Like show me where it's at, and like, what do I need to do to take this out or whatever it is. And it's
Yeah.
like, it's a 15-minute video, bro. Come on. And you're trying to scrub through and everything. How many moments of these in your life have been taken away from you that take away from those core values and the things? And again, in no way, shape, or form am I passing judgment on anyone, because again, I built
Well,
my
you're
career off of
you're
this.
older, so you know what life was like before it was taken by social media. These kids these days don't know the difference. They actually have never lived a life outside of social media, or if they have, it's been because their parents fought, you know, tooth and nail to get them off their devices. So
Yeah.
we're dealing with a severely addicted, psychologically, foundationally different generation.
Yeah. I mean, again, you take and you look at a lot of these statistics around the U.S. specifically that I'd cite in the book, and that I think the number of eating disorders from 2000 to 2018 to 2022 increased, and like I think there was 107% increase in just that 4 years, or 4 year span. All these different things that, while they may not have had the same youth experience as I did with dial-up internet and everything, it's not to say that there aren't impacts, and especially if they are children, it's our job as parents to shepherd them in a way where it's like, you may not like it, but this is the
But if
thing
they're
that we're going to have to do.
physically addicted, which is what you're saying, they're actually chemically, physically addicted to screens. Like you're basically having these child addicts that you're trying to pry away from something their body believes, and that's the nature of addiction, is your body believes it won't survive without that form of consumption.
Mhm.
This is a tough situation.
It is, and so, and again, I can only speak to some of the studies that I cite in there, and my anecdotal experience. If I were just to off the cuff say, okay, like, how are we going to approach this? Again, if you know if someone does have a problem in any way, shape, or form that that leads, they find in the process that they're depressed, there are many different places that people can reach out to for help. Toll-free numbers and stuff like that. But I found a few key tools, again, that cost nothing, depending on where you are in the world and whatnot. But community is definitely, if you look at blue zones as an example, where most of the centenarians live in the world, their diets actually vary pretty drastically in some of the regions, and their access to healthcare and these different factors kind of vary a little bit too. The one underlying key component to almost all of them is community. They have a sense of purpose, a sense of belonging, and a group of people that they interact with on a regular basis. And I would say that the substitution for the junk food digital version of community is another reason why there may be a cognitive or emotional atrophy in the youth in so many different ways. So as a parent, if you're finding that there is that addictive component to it, what are their physical in-person communities looking like? Are they part of sports? Are they part of a chess club or any of these other things that forces them to be in a physical space with other children or their peers on a regular basis? And if not, then I would look to ways to bring that as more of a prominent part of their lived experience, like a daily, weekly, or whatever it is.
Hmm.
The other thing that I found, which is really, really one of my favorite aspects of it was just like such a weird hack because it's so free, is gratitude. And you look through all these studies. This is the thing that stood out to me more than anything. One of the most researched or observed data points of all time is a placebo effect, right? And a lot of studies, it's factored in what 2 to 3%. And what that tells you is that the brain has the ability to impact the physiological state in a
Hmm.
meaningful way. So for me, when I started in religions and a number of different ways, people incorporate gratitude in their daily life, be it before a meal, before bed, or whatever it is. So I tried introducing inconvenient gratitude, so it didn't become just status quo, and I just was checking a box or something. So as an example that I give is I would whenever I get in my truck, I would take 3 to 5 minutes, and I would say, I'm grateful that I have reliable transportation. I am extremely fortunate that I have a career that
Hmm.
has provided for me to have fuel and all these other different things. And something really weird started happening is like whenever I would get in traffic where I would typically be frustrated, like I'm running late, oh man, these people are going to be upset or whatever it is, and then like, oh, woe is me, very main character syndrome like. Um, this shift started happening where I would get in traffic, it'd be construction, and there would just be this positive spin on it. Be like, oh man, this is awesome. This dude working construction right here in my neighborhood, he has a job. He's providing for his family. He's making my community better. This is awesome. It sucks I'm running late, but the world's not going to end because of it. They'll understand. And there's this weird shift that happens. And by introducing gratitude, my perspective on so many things just changed. And I go back to inputs equal outputs
Hmm.
because so much of my daily consumption was algorithmically curated to keep me in a fight or flight state. Anger, fear. Like
Yeah.
my inputs were all negative. And so by offsetting that with positive inputs, it really had a meaningful impact on my life.
Can I share another hack for children?
Please, please.
Okay. So, one of the hacks that I use with screen addiction at home with my daughter is, and this goes to your input output uh, theory. So, blue light is what you're getting from the screen. So, the hardest things parents have is transitioning their kid off of YouTube or off of, I want one more. I want one more. Right. Like that's and then like the catastrophe of when you take the iPad away, it's full blown meltdown. If you're a parent, you've seen this. Um, so, one thing to do to offset the blue light that they're getting is forcing them to go outside to watch that last episode, or any episode, right? Getting them outside and directed at the sunlight. So, having the sunlight like on them with the screen set off in the shade somewhere. Right. So I'll shade the device, but I'll try to put my child's body directly in the sunlight so that she's getting all of that good direct red light, infrared, direct sunlight. And
Oh,
I
that's great.
guarantee you there will be no meltdown when you turn that thing off. It is like I have seen it now so many times that my jaw is on the ground. Whereas if she's watching indoors, completely different reaction to the last episode or whatever.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any pets?
Yeah, many.
Do they have chores for the pets? Like cleaning, like feeding them or anything?
Not yet. No, not yet.
Yeah. I mean, again, I live on a farm, so I have like 32 chickens and 2 cows and stuff. I feel
Right,
like,
lots of
yeah, like,
chores.
yeah, for me, like shifting from my digital experience with everyone, and then like kind of farm thereafter. Definitely, there's something to that for me, especially the second half of the day. Again, I say this over and over, but like I have cognitive atrophy. I get probably the context switching between different things, but I just like it makes life so much easier to be outdoors, and then
Yeah.
that natural kind of, like you say, like the
It's
sun
so much better.
setting.
Yeah. When I'm at my ranch, I start my day with feeding the horses. And it's coffee and horses, and it's never just throwing the hay to the horses. It's standing there watching them eat, talking about if they're keeping weight on. But it's the best way to start the day.
I love
Days
it.
are better that way.
I love it. I love it.
Okay, final thing I wanted to ask you about pornography, because
Hmm.
you make a direct correlation to online pornography addiction, because again, you're not just getting the content, you're getting the content delivered on your screen with an enormous amount of blue light exposure. So what's programming the brain is not just the content, but the light as well. And you talk about how online addiction, part of it's pornography. There's a big movement right now in the online Christian community to just get people to stop watching pornography altogether, because they believe that it's, even though you're not participating in it, your imagination is participating in it, and therefore your spirit's participating in it, and it's a sin. It's you are like, there is no difference in the spiritual world. From a non-Christian perspective, why would you recommend, if you do at all recommend, people try to get off of addiction to pornography or use of pornography at all?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So it's a very complex problem, and so
Mhm.
you have to look at what's happening chemically, neurologically, and in these different processes. So the one aspect which you were talking about, the voyeur, is a real issue, far as psychologists and erectile dysfunction and things of that nature, where they're so used to habitually being the voyeur that when they're
Mm,
the active participant in it, it makes it more challenging for them to get an erection. But if you were to step back from that and you'd say, from what we're talking about, as far as the dopaminergic system and friction, whenever you want to have a sexual relationship with somebody in any capacity, what's going to happen is you're going to have to meet them somewhere, somehow, dating app, at a bar,
mhm,
wherever, church. And you have to go through the process of introducing yourself to them. Am I going to be rejected? There's this emotional thing that's happening. There's this effort that's required. Then you have to ask them out on a date. You have to go get food. You have to do. There's this dance that's happening, and then it ultimately leads to the point at which you have a sexual relationship. When that release happens, you have another chemical response. You have oxytocin and all these other different bonding molecules being released. And so you have this very complex system that's happening for this achieved result, or this desired result. Whenever
mhm,
you're getting the junk food version of that, be it porn, you're bypassing the entire process and you're going straight to the finish line. And
mhm,
by doing so, they found in a lot of studies that that PIED, or porn-induced erectile dysfunction, is becoming way more of an issue within society.
Wow.
Um,
I
and
had no
and
idea.
and this is a neurological process that isn't getting the benefit of the full effort required to the desired result and everything. So for me, like, I try not to judge people for the things that they do. I just want them to know that there are
Consequences.
consequences for your actions in that sense. And as far as
It's not
religion,
worth it.
yeah, I mean, again, I mean, I guess you could say there are also studies I would question around, but they were specifically around prostate cancer and the this might be TMI, but the frequency of ejaculation for a male, and seeing if there was any type of correlation between the frequency, and they found that those that did more frequently, i.e., 30 times a month, had less statistically um, uh, cancer.
Hmm.
And so, and again, it's one of those, I'm not a researcher in this space. I was just going through as many different studies and trying to figure out what the mechanism was and why it could be bad for people, and just letting them know that, hey, look, in the
But that's
human
not an
brain.
excuse to invite porn into one's life. I mean, there's alternatives. And I think that's what this black and white thinking is problematic, to like introduce these things that have so many potential consequences, like porn, and porn addiction, so many serious consequences. And so to say, oh, prostate cancer will increase if you reduce porn, that's not a direct correlation.
No, 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 no. Like I said, there's a number of ways you could achieve that result if you were to look at that
Yeah.
study.
It's a tough topic. It's a tough topic because porn is so readily available on the internet. It's not frowned upon. In fact, it's encouraged by some psychologists, even, and some social scientists.
Well,
And the porn lobby is very strong. Porn has been the foundation of much of the internet. So whatever standard video format porn is on in the internet, that's becomes the whole internet standard for all video content, right?
yeah, I
We-
would add to that as well. I would
Yeah.
say that the things that I was looking at in that research was very concrete, as the produced kind of video production style, the studios, or whatever you want to call them. But there's also a new component to it in the last decade or so, which is the parasocial component to it, with
Mhm.
OnlyFans and stuff like that, where you're hijacking the perception of those natural processes,
Mhm.
and exploiting that in a way that is, again, it's a little more effective in doing so, which is
Yeah.
unfortunate in that sense.
Yeah, it's really awful. And honestly, I now, being a new Christian, understand why, protecting your soul from that kind of content is valuable. But without Christianity, it's really hard to actually articulate, when you don't talk about the soul and the value of a soul, and eternal damnation of the soul, right?
Yeah.
It's a much more challenging conversation, without a faith based approach. It seems very logical. Uh, but I do appreciate the fact that there are biological consequences, and that when you pay attention to stuff online, there is a direct subtraction from your lived experience. And I think that's what, in some, your book is about.
Yeah, yeah, in a lot of ways. Yeah, and again, for me, it was doing the work, and then realizing how it was clearly outside of my values, and how I was spending my time, and not
Mhm.
prioritizing the things that I care about in that sense. So.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. If there's a place for people to maybe go visit for quick hacks that they can implement in their life today, where would you send them?
Oh, well, I mean, if you want to get the book, hardcovers at warriorsgarden.com, and the audiobook will be out here probably in the next week or two.
Great.
But I think that there's a number of resources out there. I just tried distilling down as much as I could.
Okay. Well, thanks so much for doing this, Richard Ryan, and for all of the online addicted people out there. Go look at the sun. That's another hack in the morning when it's rising. Just like look at, not like directly into the ball of the sun, but look up towards the light before you go on that blue screen.
It's the best way to start your day.
Yeah. Thank you so much.